Hello and welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today we're counting down the top 10 best movies of 2023. So before I get into the list, as always, I've got a couple of things to say. I have not seen every movie to come out this year. Frankly, I've seen like 60 new movies this year, which is a record for me, but still I did not see every movie despite my best attempt to catch up at the end of the year. There were still some movies that slipped through the cracks and I'll have to get to eventually later. I will also say this is completely subjective. Art is subjective, so you're probably not going to agree with every decision I make on this list, especially because 2023, believe it or not, was a great year for movies. I know it's the fun thing nowadays. People say nobody makes good movies anymore. There were so many good movies, I struggled to come up with a top 10 list because I couldn't justify taking any of them off. So I'm going to have a longer than normal honorable mentions list, and normally I would do that first, but I'm going to save it until later in the video because I don't want to spoil anything. There was a lot of really good movies this year. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite movie or top 5, 10 favorite movies of the year were. I'd love to hear from you guys. So without further ado, let's get on with this list. Number 10. Barbie. This movie's fun. This movie's a lot of fun. And obviously it has social commentary in it. That was the big thing that people want to talk about. I was a fan of most of it. I said in my first thoughts that there was the monologue that I didn't love, I'll be frank, but I thought that the movie did a really good job making its case for both sides and a lot of different points. I thought it did that really well, but even if it hadn't, this movie was hilarious. I also thought the acting was phenomenal from Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. I thought they were both great. They both got nominated for Golden Globes. They'll probably both get nominated for Oscars, and they both deserve to be. They were phenomenal. And also, Greta Gerwig is just a great director. I wasn't really that familiar with her work before this movie, but because of this, now I'm a big fan, and I can't wait to see whatever she does next. She's got a lot of talent. Number 9, The Iron Claw. What a devastating movie this was. It was an emotional journey, and it was so rewarding. Everything about it is such a beautifully told story. Coming from somebody who didn't know or frankly care about anything involved with this story or these people or these events beforehand, this movie grabbed me and didn't let me go for the entire runtime. That's saying something. This movie is powerful. Number 8. Priscilla. Ever since that awful Elvis movie came out last year, 2 years, whenever that was, I was hoping and waiting for a movie like this to come out, and I'm so glad it did. It was just so refreshing to see so much misinformation debunked so succinctly. It tells a story so matter-of-factly, and that's not to say that it's not artistic, because it is, but it's just like, here is what you need to know. This is what is happening, and we're not glorifying anything, we're not necessarily demonizing anything, but here are the facts, and it's just told so plainly that it really puts some of these actions, some of these things that happened in like a cold, harsh light that I really enjoyed. And Kaylee Spaney, who plays Priscilla in this movie, was phenomenal. I don't think she's going to win the Oscar, but she would be my pick, I think, honestly. I thought she did amazing. And as somebody who isn't honestly the biggest fan of Sofia Coppola, I thought she was masterful. I've nitpicked a lot of her movies to death. There was nothing really to nitpick about this movie. She just did a fantastic job. Number 7. They cloned Tyrone. Now, this may be a bit of a surprise to those who are subscribed to my channel because I hadn't talked about this movie at all this year. And frankly, I just watched this movie fairly recently. It came out back in July, but it came out the same day that Oppenheimer and Barbie did. It was kind of overshadowed, and it was on my list. I wanted to get to it, and I just never did until recently. It is very much in the same vein as Sorry to Bother You, and to a lesser extent Get Out, where it's got that social commentary sprinkled with some comedy. This movie definitely is the funniest of the three. I mean, Get Out is a horror movie. It's not primarily funny. It does have some comedy in it, but it's primarily a horror movie. Sorry to Bother You, it has a lot more comedy, but this is even more so in the comedy satire direction. That means that the plot kind of is lacking in comparison to those two, and the commentary isn't quite as good as those two, but it is still in the same, to me, conversation as those movies, which those are two, in my opinion, classics. This movie maybe not quite classic territory, is still very, very good. I mean, John Boyega, I barely recognized him. I had no idea it was him. Like, I knew he was in the movie, I was expecting to see him, and I saw him and I was like, is that him? And I had to double check because I wasn't sure. His acting took me so by surprise. All I'd ever seen him in was Star Wars before. I didn't know he had it in him. Also, Jamie Foxx is hilarious in this movie. He's got a running commentary going through like the whole movie, and it never stops making you laugh out loud at how funny it is. It's just a really, really funny movie with a message that's told pretty well. Number 6, Beau is Afraid. Beau is Afraid is hard. I finally watched it for the first time a couple weeks ago since seeing it for the first time in theaters, and I still haven't entirely made up my mind what I think about the movie, except for that I like it. I really, really like it. It's not a perfect movie. I still think that it's probably a little bit too long. I think that some of the imagery is a little bit too bizarre for me. But when the movie does hit and everything does line up, it is one of the most visually captivating and awe-inspiring movies I've seen in a long time. Some of these visual moments of these allegories that are showing a bigger story with these odd, strange little scenes are so unique and so thought-provoking that I just kind of sat back in awe on a second viewing. The first viewing, I was definitely lost. I knew there was something there and I picked up on a lot of it, but on a second viewing, I was taken aback at how well it was crafted, even if still there are parts that frankly leave me lost. But I've learned this year that even if you don't fully understand art, that doesn't prevent you from loving it, or appreciating it at least. And between Ari Aster's amazing directing and Joaquin Phoenix's brilliant performance, and yes, some very strange and bizarre imagery, I couldn't get this movie out of my head all year, ever since I saw it. Unlike some of the movies that ended up in my honorable mentions this year, there were movies that were probably better crafted this year than this movie, but they weren't as memorable and they weren't as impactful. Even though I try to be objective to a degree as a critic, there is subjectivity, and I'm allowing that subjectivity to come through here. Same thing with Barbie. Like I said, that movie had some imperfections in it. Those movies just left an impact on me, and that is a bigger thing to me than perfectionism, frankly. Number 5, Air. I may be giving away a little bit of a spoiler about this list by quoting myself from early in the year when I said, "It's amazing what good directing and writing can do when you can make a movie about making a shoe more interesting than a movie about making an atomic bomb." It really is just a mastery of storytelling with great directing and great writing and a great cast that made this movie interesting. Because, like some other movies I mentioned on this list already, I did not care. I do not care about shoes. I've never been a shoe head, never really cared at all about fashion that much. Hey, look at this, I'm wearing a cardigan. I don't know a thing. I'm lost when it comes to fashion. But this movie was able to make me interested and invested in not only the characters being portrayed here, but their goal and their mission of creating the best shoe ever. That's great storytelling. I really have to give it to Ben Affleck. He's really impressed me recently. I never thought of him as a great director, but the more movies he comes out with, the more I go, he's onto something. He's doing something right. Also, Matt Damon is an actor that I've never been like, hey, let me go see that movie because Matt Damon is in it. I'm never really upset when he's in a movie, but he's never been a draw for me to go see a movie. But once again, the more I've been seeing him lately, the more I'm like, yeah, he's good. He is a good actor. I know, wild concept, but this movie is just front to back good filmmaking. It really is solid all the way through. And I know it's just, like I said, a movie about people making a shoe. That shouldn't be entertaining, but it was, and that's my point. Number 4, American Fiction. Coming in as a late addition to this list because I just saw this about a week ago, I am still very fresh on this movie, which it's kind of like the Bardo thing last year where it's like I'm afraid to rank it any higher, but I can't put it any lower, where this movie just, from the jump, I knew I was going to love this movie. The social commentary is so succinct, so clever, so funny. It's just, you can't look away at any moment. This movie grips you so hard, but with such a gentle touch because of the comedy side of things. They're able to slap you in the face repeatedly, but they make it funny enough that you're not mad about it. It is, at times, a very painful look at society because there's a lot of very ugly things about society, unfortunately, and it's not afraid to show any of it. It's also not afraid to say, I don't have the answer. I don't know necessarily the way to fix all of this. And I adore that. There's nothing worse to me than a preachy movie. A movie that's saying what's wrong with society or wrong with a select group of people, and then saying, and this is what you need to do. This is why it's wrong. This is why you're wrong. This is how we need to fix it. And this is why you need to do that. And this movie doesn't fall into that trap. It shows you extremely complex situations with real feeling characters, and some of the decisions you may not like. You may not agree with it. And maybe you will. That's the point. It's life. It's people that some are intelligent, some aren't, but they're all trying to figure out life together. They all are aware of the broken parts of society, and they're all just trying to make a life for themselves. And I'm going to repeat myself from my first thoughts of the movie when I said, and it's probably the funniest movie of the year. And it doesn't need to be. If you took out every single joke in this movie would still be a top 10 movie of the year, but they made it the funniest movie of the year just for kicks too. The drama of it, the acting in it, there's multiple actors in this movie worthy of a nomination for an Oscar or a Golden Globe. All of this drama is so well crafted that, like I said, you don't need the humor. But the humor is so good that you're so happy every time it happens. That's good writing. That's good filmmaking. Number 3, Asteroid City. To me, this was Wes Anderson's most thought-provoking work to date. And I'm not trying to say it's his best movie to date. I still would take a couple over this at least, but this made me think more than any of his other movies. Moonrise Kingdom is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. I love that movie. I adore that movie. I think it's fantastic. I think visually it's amazing. I think the acting is great. I think the comedy is perfect. I love the story. I even love the kid actors in it, and I rarely do. That movie's great. But after that movie's over, other than like the good feelings it gave me, the vibes of it that I enjoyed so much, I'm not really left with much to think about, at least in my opinion. This movie was totally different. This movie just stuck with me where I couldn't stop thinking about the messaging in this movie and what it was trying to get across, and the visuals that it used to convey messages, and some of the quirky lines and the line deliveries and the things that they were saying, like you can't wake up unless you fall asleep. I loved that. I was so inspired, so awestruck by Wes Anderson this late in his career to step up his game like this as a storyteller. Like I said, I don't view it as his best movie. It's certainly a good one, but I don't think it's his best. But it's the most different thing to date that he's done. And oftentimes at this stage of a director's career, they're done reinventing themselves. They're done changing. They're done growing. They're done doing anything different. And this is not the case. Wes Anderson proved that he is willing to step out of his comfort zone a little bit and try something new, try something different. It's still very Wes Anderson-y. It was described by a lot of people as his most Wes Anderson-y movie yet. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it's still very much his visual style. It's still very much in that comfort zone of Wes Anderson feel, but it is also so different that a lot of his fans didn't like this movie and said he lost me with this one. And I admire him for doing a risk like that. And not only do I admire him for doing a risk like that, I think it paid off because I think it was one of the best movies of the year. Like I've been saying, and it's kind of become the theme of this year's list, is I want a movie that will impact me on a deeper level, a movie that will stick with me and say something to me. This movie, I think it did. It really did. It impacted how I thought about life more than any other movie this year. There was still a couple movies that I enjoyed more than this, obviously, but it changed how I approached life more than any other movie did this year. And that's what I love about art so much, is it's not just something to entertain you. It's not just something to distract you. It is there to affect you. And this movie affected me, and I love that. Number 2, Dream Scenario. Nicolas Cage is such a wonderful enigma, isn't he? One day he'll give you the worst performance you've ever seen in the most fantastic way, and the next day, he will deliver an Oscar-worthy performance. I don't know how he does it. I really don't. It's a shame to me that I don't think he is going to win any awards, because he is very firmly in the top 3 best actors, in my opinion, this year. And frankly, I think he's going to be stuck at that third, where, you know, Golden Globes and Oscars don't always agree. One may go one way and one may go the other way. And I'm afraid that, frankly, Nicolas Cage is going to be left in the middle, where he won't get anything for it. And I think that's a shame, because he was fantastic in this role. I think all of his roles should be like this. I wish he put this kind of effort. Well, I think he does, actually. I think he puts just as much effort into his bad roles as he does his good, which is the confusing part. But I don't know. It was so good. He really made this movie work. And it was a great concept. Don't get me wrong. This movie could have worked with another actor, but I don't think it would have worked right or the same way with another actor. But the concept was so original. I love the idea of this movie. Once again, I love the message it's getting across, the allegory. I'm a sucker for allegories. I've talked in the past about allegorical horror, but it doesn't have to be horror. It can be a thriller, it can be a drama, it can be whatever you want. I just love stories that have a deeper meaning, and this one had a really fun one to work out. If you watch the first thoughts I did with Justin, we had to kind of sit there and unwind it together, kind of untangle what this was trying to say together, because it is complex, and I love that. It's got brilliant writing, very good acting, very good directing, some wonderful visuals, some visual storytelling in there. This got really close to being my number 1. I really enjoyed this movie a lot. It could have been the number 1 on a bunch of other years, but it just so happened to be 2023 when there was a lot of really good movies. So I'm not trying to say, this is a second place movie. I know it literally is number 2 on my list, but I think of it really more as a 1A and a 1B. I had such a hard time going back and forth as long as I saw these 2 movies, trying to decide which one was better, and I kind of just had to pick one. And I already know that at some point in the future, I'm going to look back at this video and be like, did I make the right choice? I don't know. It's just consider it 1A and 1B. They're both phenomenal. I think I like number 1 just a little bit more. But before I get to that, let's do the honorable mentions. The honorable mentions are Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Thanksgiving, Renfield, Elemental, Skinamarink, and Big Shark. The number 1 movie of 2023 is The Holdovers. Boy, oh boy, I've been a huge fan of Paul Giamatti ever since The Illusionist came out almost 2 decades ago now, and I have followed his career ever since. Really enjoyed him in pretty much every performance, whether he was being the doorman in Robots. Did you know that?
Oh, hey! Now that's funny! The second time! Because you really think I'm gonna let you in! But I'm not!
Or he's delivering another phenomenal, subdued performance. He is, to me, I put him in the same category as Gary Oldman, where they're both the best actors alive when they want to be, and then also when they want to be a little weirdo, a little overacting freak at times. He's delivered such great performances, but he's never been given, until this moment, a real genuine chance to shine. And finally now he's given this role where he fully shined as the amazing actor that I knew he was. This is the crown jewel on his career so far. It was an amazing performance. I really hope that he wins the Golden Globe or the Oscar, or maybe both for this. I think he would really deserve it. I think that he probably will win at least once. I'm not sure. I think Jeffrey Wright also stands a good chance to win one or both. And I don't know. He really carries this movie to a whole new level. It's kind of like what I said with Nicolas Cage in Dream Scenario, where the movie would have been good without him, but he made it a classic. I don't know if you could call any of these other movies classics. I think Dream Scenario is very much like a cult classic, and this probably is too, but just the quality of the craftsmanship of this movie is just amazing. And like I said, Dream Scenario and this were so close that I really couldn't pick a winner outright, but Dream Scenario had tiny little things that I could nitpick and pick apart about it. The Holdovers didn't. It was just amazing, with the performances being fantastic, the story feeling timeless, the visuals feeling very nostalgic, even for a time that I wasn't alive for. I felt nostalgic for it, with very clever and witty dialogue and writing, and a story that, once again, pulls you in despite maybe an indifference for these characters. You know, if somebody told me, oh, I'm going to write a movie about a teacher that nobody likes at a boarding school, I wouldn't jump at seeing that movie. I wouldn't be super stoked and waiting for that to come out. But I saw it and I was enthralled by it, because it's so much more than that surface level idea. These characters feel so real. Once again, all of them feel so real, and you were totally invested in everything that all of these people, I said people, not characters, for a reason, all these people are going through. I gave this movie like an 8 or an 8.5 when I rated it before, and the more I'm talking about it, the more I'm like, maybe I underrated it. Maybe it deserves better than that. This movie is just, it's great. I really enjoyed it. And it's not just the craftsmanship. Once again, this movie left me feeling something. This movie made me feel like I need to be kinder to people. And it's hard to make me feel that, because I don't like people. But watching this movie, there's such this resounding message of we're all going through something typically invisible. Nobody knows what everybody else is dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So maybe we should all just be kinder to one another, give each other a little bit more leash, assume that, you know, the kind of stuff you're going through, they're probably going through something similar. So just, I don't know, maybe help each other get through this life. Maybe just be a little bit kinder, be a little bit more loving, be a little bit more forgiving. It's a good movie. It really is. And it's a heartwarming movie that manages to be heartwarming without being cheesy at all. That is incredibly difficult to do. If you haven't seen it yet, please do check it out. It is totally worthy of being, in my opinion, the #1 movie of the year. So that's why I had to think. That was my list. Like I said, a lot of really good movies this year. I enjoyed so many movies I saw. I hope you did too. I hope you had a great year, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, please let me know in the comments below what your favorite movies of the year were. Also, don't forget to like, share, if you're new here, subscribe. Thanks, guys.